Hello and welcome to another edition of Pete's This Week from the Kojiko TV production studios. I'm your host Dan Mantha. An exciting time around the OHL. The Bobby Orr Trophy could be coming to Peterborough, but first they'll have to go through a team. Mississauga Steelheads. Joining me from the Steelheads broadcast is Matt Cullen. He does the color for those games. Matt, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
Great, Dan. How are you? I'm looking forward to a pretty good series.
Yeah, it should be fun, absolutely. And before we went on camera, you were mentioning that it looks like it's pretty much the two best teams in the conference, and I'd have to say I agree. The start of the season, I picked Mississauga to go through to the finals, and they're here now. Didn't have the same feeling about the Petes, but they've proven to be a tough team. What's your impression of them from afar?
Yeah, obviously the Petes have been very good. I mean, how can you argue against an 8-0 team in the playoffs? Two straight sweeps, and with goaltending like Dylan Wells is providing the team right now, they're pretty hard to bet against. And you know, maybe they don't have the flashiest guys up front, but boy, the depth up front there and some good goaltending, and it's pretty easy to see why they're 8-0.
And in terms of just the challenges that you think there might be for the Mississauga Steelheads in lining up against the Petes, their roster, you don't see many, so much talent going right now, but what problems do you think they might have? Did they have any problems in the first two rounds anywhere?
I think that the Mississauga Steelheads, their biggest problem, to be honest, was running into hot goaltenders. They had it a couple of times against Leo Lazarev. He stole a couple of games in that Ottawa series. And then Jeremy Brodeur really stole game one. That's one of the best goaltending performances that I've seen in this league. He had 50 saves. So obviously, with Dylan Wells playing how he is, a goals against average of under 2, I think that that'll be the biggest problem for the Mississauga Steelheads. They've got to make life difficult for Wells, and you know what, anything can happen with a hot goaltender. So I think that's the biggest challenge for the Steelheads in this series.
All right, so jumping off from that, Matt, the difference between the two goalies, they've spent a lot of time playing with one another. They know one another very well. Matt Mancina or Jake Ingham, is there any debate actually whether or not, or who's going to be starting in the finals?
Yeah, that's the biggest question, Dan, that everybody wants to know around Mississauga. And I'm going to practice tomorrow to put together a preview for the team, and I should be able to have an answer then. Of course, Matt Mancina missed the last 3 weeks heading into the playoffs with an ankle injury, so he missed the entire series against the 67s. Jacob Ingham took the Steelheads through that series in 6 games. And then he fell ill, a strange injury. He had to leave school and didn't even dress for the Oshawa series. And Matt Mancina was able to jump in there. Didn't think he looked 100%, but he certainly played well when it mattered most. So who starts game one? My guess that they would go with the overager just because he won the most recent series. You know, that being said, Jacob Ingham looked pretty darn good in the series against Ottawa. So we should have an update on Wednesday, whether it's who starts and who doesn't start.
Yeah, and Matt, you get to spend a lot of time around the players and the team. Do you think it matters a little bit extra to Matt Mancina if he does get a chance to play against his old team, the Peterborough Petes?
Yeah, I think that Matt Mancina is obviously really looking forward to trying to start this game, not only because he's a Peterborough Pete, but because he's an overage. Jacob Ingham has a lot of bright years ahead of him. He's been fantastic as a 16-year-old rookie for the Steelheads. But Matt Mancina played 2 years in Peterborough, as you know very well. And he had an up and down year with Mississauga. Got off to a pretty rough start, but since January really put together some solid numbers. And I know he was disappointed talking with him and that ankle injury that happened just a week before the season ended. You know what? I think that he wants a chance at the Petes. He didn't beat them this year in the 3 games that he played, 0-2-1. So you know what? I think that this is a little bit more meaningful for him just with his situation.
Now looking at the Steelheads and who's been performing during the playoffs, would you be able to pick a playoff MVP so far?
Well, there's been a couple real good ones, but the captain, Mike McLeod, has really taken his game to another level. For a while there, he was first in OHL playoff scoring, which is incredible to think. If you compare the likes of Alexander DeBrincat, who had 65 goals in the year, Michael McLeod had more points than DeBrincat, and obviously they've had an incredible run as well, the Erie Otters. But yeah, Mike McLeod has really taken his game to the next level. Spencer Watson, his line mate, those two have played together for most of the season, at least the second half of the season anyway, and they've shown tremendous chemistry. So they both have 17 points heading into this playoff series, the Eastern Conference Final, and that has them tied for 4th in playoff scoring. So both impressive performances from those two guys. They use a lot of speed and creativity in their game.
And in terms of just pure weapons, roster riddled with them. And Owen Tippett from Peterborough, Ontario, another guy who we expect to see some serious talent from in town. I don't know how much that means to him as well. I'm sure you guys will ask him that in Mississauga. I'm sure we'll get a chance to ask him the same. Now, James Richmond, how's he preparing his team for the Petes?
Yeah, I think that this series will be a very difficult one for Mississauga, and I'm sure that I'll get a bit of an idea on Wednesday with practice. But Owen Tippett's a guy that had a great regular season, 44 goals that had him fourth in OHL goal scoring, and a guy that's going into his draft year. He really raised his stock after what was a pretty good rookie year as well for Owen Tippett. And I imagine for him that going in to his hometown Peterborough to playing the team that he probably grew up cheering for and watching a lot around that Peterborough Memorial Center. So this will obviously be a very important moment for Owen Tippett. He's found other ways to contribute in the playoffs, Dan. He hasn't had the goals come like they did in the regular season. I think teams have really keyed in on him and not really given him a lot of space, but he's still got 11 points in 11 playoff games. So you can expect Tippett to be a factor for sure.
Matt, the Steelheads season, it's been a turbulent one to say the least, taking it back to December when they did bottom out in last place. How did they manage to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get to the point where they're at right now? So at the start of the season, everybody did think they were going to be the dominant team they currently are, but how'd they go through that process?
To be honest, Dan, it was a very low point of the year on December 2nd when the Steelheads were dead last in the entire OHL. They had a record of 6-14-6. They had lost 9 in a row. And if you remember, the Petes beat them twice in a home and host series. That was losses 8 and 9 in that dreadful losing streak. And they got a couple of key additions. Spencer Watson obviously missed the first 3 months or so with a wrist injury, and Vili Saarijarvi did as well. So once those two guys got back in the lineup, this team really started to get some momentum. And just to give you an idea, second game of Spencer Watson's time with Mississauga, he scored a hat trick. I mean, missing all that time and to get him back in the lineup, and he picked up a hat trick in his second game. That really started to get the ball rolling. So it was a pretty good month of December, but then afterwards, the Mississauga Steelheads since January 1st were an excellent team. If you go back and look at it, they won 28 of their last 42 games in the regular season. So this is a team that really found its stride in that second half of the year. But let me tell you, those back-to-back losses against Peterborough, that was rock bottom, that's for sure.
Do you think the 10-1 game means anything heading into this series?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that if you ask any of the Steelheads, that you could throw that game right out the window. That was a pretty close game until the third period where Mississauga got a couple of bounces, and you could see that the Petes, the wheels had come off the tracks there. Like I said, I think that if anything, that loss helped the Petes kind of maybe give them a bit of a mental check, saying, you know what, hey, if we want to lock down first, we got to play that way. So I think that helped the Peterborough Petes. And for the Mississauga Steelheads, I don't think that they'll remember that game at all. I don't think we'll see a game like that at all in this series.
Yeah, well, we hope not. We hope they're all exciting. But now, lastly, before I let you go, just take me into the mindset of the players and the fan base. First, we'll start with the players. Through 2 series, where are they at mentally? Where's their confidence at?
Yeah, I think that Mississauga is riding a high. Obviously, they split the first 2 games against Oshawa here at the Hershey Center, and then went to Oshawa and won in a very tough building. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Oshawa was one of the best home teams in the OHL this year at 25-9, and the Mississauga Steelheads ended that series with 3 straight road wins. They've been excellent on the road so far in these playoffs. 6-0, so I'm telling you, the Petes better watch out for games 1 and 2. I know Peterborough as well, undefeated, of course, but these are 2 pretty good teams going against each other, and I expect a good, hard, long series. In terms of their mentality, I think that for the fan base, I think that there's more and more excitement being drawn up around the team. Obviously, the attendance struggles from the beginning of the year were well documented. I thought that they were a lot better. We had some very nice crowds down the stretch at the Hershey Center, and I know that they're planning a couple of trips up to Peterborough, so you can expect some loud Steelheads fans in the building. Good-natured guys, though. Don't let me kid you on that, but they'll be loud.
Yeah, I was at Game 5 in Oshawa. I saw quite the Mississauga contingent. We expect to see Matt Cullen sighting at any of the games.
You know, I work nights, as I was telling you before, there down at the CBC building. So with the NHL playoffs coming around. I won't be able to do game 1 or game 2, but if the series goes longer, I will definitely try and work a night off in there so I can get up to see the team.
Matt, thanks so much for joining me today. We look forward to seeing you on the broadcast in game 3 and 4.
Yeah, you bet. Have a good call, you guys, and we're looking forward to some great hockey. Thanks for having me.
There's Matt Cullen, the color analyst from Mississauga Steelheads broadcast on Rogers TV in the Peel region. Now we'll head to break. On the other side of that, I spoke with Andrew Werner about some comparisons between Dylan Wells and Matt Mancina. You're watching Pete's This Week on Cogeco TV.